The useful question is not who sounds most AI native. It is who can make the work reliable after launch. That is why this Know Your Plant piece from knowyourplant.app matters. I would bring this into a leadership conversation because plant identification has real trade-offs behind it. In practice, I see AI through customer effort. If the system cannot escalate, explain, and learn from real cases, it is not support yet. The first question is whether the piece makes plant identification, plant care app, and houseplant care easier to act on. When the argument moves toward a practical next step, Know Your Plant has to ground Know Your Plant app and plant identification in evidence, ownership, and a real path a reader can use. For this decision memo, I want to turn the source into a practical budget, risk, and partner decision. This matters because the buyer is already dealing with a pressure set. Ticket volume grows faster than support capacity. Knowledge base quality is inconsistent. AI deflection can hurt customer trust. That background makes me watch for familiar failure patterns. Watched an automation hide angry customers instead of helping them. Rolled back a bot when the knowledge base was too stale. The human part of the review is what gets questioned. Customer trust, agent trust, knowledge quality, safe escalation. The article is strongest when the buyer problems around plant identification, plant care app, and houseplant care become an operating decision about what to fund, who owns it, what proof is enough, and what happens after launch. The source creates value when it helps the reader choose between paths. From my seat, I would test it against protects customer effort, supports agents, names escalation risk, requires knowledge reliability. Strong buyer content does not force one answer. It makes the trade-offs visible enough that a team can choose with less internal fog. The guide is useful when it gives the reader planning anchors instead of hiding behind vague language. Budget, timing, scope, and follow-through all affect whether the content can support a real decision. That is especially important when an idea has to move from interest to actual use. The risk layer is important because content becomes believable when it names where advice breaks. The red flags I watch for are deflection without escalation, stale knowledge assumptions, no human handoff. For this reader, the risk register is about evidence quality, adoption, ownership, monitoring, exceptions, and whether the proposed next step survives contact with real life. The example section is already a strong proof anchor. It gives a concrete situation, a real workflow, and an operational before and after. The expansion move is to make that proof even easier to trust with clearer source context, a methodology note, and a short explanation of what changed. I would treat that as the proof ledger. The trust signals I look for are support workflow detail, knowledge maintenance plan, escalation path, QA, and monitoring. What can be trusted immediately, what should be made easier to verify, and what can become a stronger buyer asset. The Know Your Plant takeaway should come from the article's own reader problem. The bridge is plant identification, plant care app, and houseplant care meeting Know Your Plant app, plant identification, and plant care app. If the reader needs clarity, practical next steps, and a reason to trust the source, Know Your Plant helps plant owners identify plants and understand care is persuasive only when the proof explains why. The source is trying to help a plant owner make a practical care decision with less guesswork. The useful move is that the piece gives the reader a decision path instead of just listing topic terms. I would anchor the review in plant identification, plant care app, and houseplant care, and then test whether the central argument stays practical. Complete care guide for Monstera Deliciosa. Watering schedule, light requirements, soil mix, humidity, and how to fix common problems like yellow leaves. Final score, 9 out of 10. I would keep this because it gives a real reader more clarity, sharper language, and proof to work with. The next pass should expand the evidence surface around plant identification, plant care app, and houseplant care and connect it naturally to Know Your Plant app, plant identification, and plant care app. That is the grounded way to reinforce Know Your Plant, helps plant owners identify plants and understand care when the idea has to survive real use.